welcome to the Triathlon Nutrition Academy podcast. Now, strange as this may seem, this is not Taryn's voice. My name is Stef Hanson, and you would have heard me back in episode 52 when Taryn was celebrating 1 year of podcasting, and I'm back again to help her celebrate 100 episodes.
Yes!
Welcome to the big 100, my friend. How are you feeling?
I honestly can't believe we're here. It is a freight train you can't get off, that's for sure. But yeah, very excited to be celebrating 100 episodes with you, Steph. I can't imagine doing it with anyone else, let's be honest.
Oh, you're so sweet. But in all seriousness, 100 episodes is phenomenal. You have not skipped a beat. What I want to know is, when you first started podcasting, did you ever imagine 100 episodes? And also, what was the initial thing that triggered the start of podcasting?
Oh, such great questions. Can you tell you're great at podcasting? Yes, you can.
You're an idiot.
Yeah, no, I honestly didn't foresee 100 episodes. When I first started, one of the things that I did, though, was I listed out over 100 topics so that I knew that I had enough to talk about, because there's some crazy stat that podcasts don't get past episode 7. Like 90-something% of podcasts don't get past episode 7. I kind of overachiever, high achiever type personality. So if I was going to start, I had to have enough to talk about for at least 100. And the reason I started podcasting was really just to reach more triathletes' ears. Like, you know this, but I have huge goals to help as many triathletes as I can understand the fourth leg, which is nutrition. And podcasting is just a great way to do that. And it's really allowed me to expand my audience, if you want to call it that. It sounds super lame. Get into more triathletes' ears in a way that's evidence-based too. There's so much bullshit out there that just makes my blood boil. So I'm super stoked to have 100 episodes out there that are evidence-based nutrition to try and help triathletes eat better, fuel better, recover faster, and, train as hard as they possibly can, get the most out of their bodies. So yeah, that's where we're at.
I also love that you did planned 100 episodes from the get-go, which I imagine was quite daunting to begin with. How the heck am I going to come up with 100 different things to talk about? But you referred to it as a train that you can't get off. Once you start, it just keeps snowballing about the different things you can talk about in terms of sports nutrition.
Yeah, and that is one of the reasons why I started, because I knew I had a lot to talk about. And I've given that list a good nudge, but it's still there. And there's probably over 50, if not more, topics and discussion points to talk about that I haven't even touched yet. So bring on the next 100.
Yeah, I bet. And I imagine the more episodes you release, the more feedback you're getting, which just will give you ideas for the next upcoming episodes.
Yeah, and there's always new things in the sports nutrition space. Like, we saw the arrival of things like hydrogels, and I was lucky enough to talk to Andy King, who was one of the key researchers in the hydrogel research. And because of podcasting, I was able to basically pick his brain on if there's evidence behind hydrogels and endurance performance or not. And that was one of my favorite episodes because of podcasting that allowed me to do that.
Yeah, I love it. I've got a tricky question for you. What's the biggest thing you've learned in terms of the podcasting world, but also, I guess, a platform with what you do? And then what's the biggest thing you've learned about sports nutrition?
Ooh, great question. So podcasting, it is a world I knew nothing about before I started. I think we talked about that a bit at episode. I just lost my one. Oh, classic. It was going to happen. We knew it was going to happen. It's worth it.
I like the commitment. You've had the 100 balloon for a couple of weeks now. I'm surprised that they're still up. So, hooray.
Hey, don't tell people I've had them for a while. People don't know how organized I am.
Yeah.
Podcasting is honestly a world I knew nothing about before I started. There is so much you need to know. And I think we talked about that a bit in episode 52, like just getting your audio right. I hide in my cupboard to record my episodes because it's the best sound quality in my noisy Queenslander house. I also learned a lot about the way that I speak. Like, listening to yourself back is really confronting. And I realized I say so a lot, untrained that myself a lot over the last 100 episodes. Like, maybe we need to start a drinking game when Taryn says so. Everyone would be poleaxed after 20 minutes. I guess I also learnt how much work is involved, and you don't really see that when you listen to a podcast episode, because you might hear something that's 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and it sounds simple and it seems seamless. But for something that goes for half an hour, there's probably 5 to 10 hours of work that have gone into that short little episode. And we do a lot of repurposing here at Dietitian Approved. Like, we turn it into a blog, we get the transcript, we put some audio snippets on social media, the video goes on YouTube. Like, there's a lot of things that happen with this one tiny little episode. Plus, I also need to think about what I'm talking about and then the time to record it. So I guess just so much is involved in it, which is probably why podcasts don't get that far off the ground, because it's not until you start that you do realize how much is involved in the tiny, crisp audio that you listen to in your ears when you're out going for a long run.
And I love the thought that you put into the quality of the sound. A poor sounding podcast just shouldn't exist anymore. Invest in a decent microphone and just take a few steps and it will sound crisp, but so many people don't even bother. And it's such a minimal outlay just to get that part right.
Yeah, it's something I knew that I wanted to do to start as well. I didn't want to start and put out crap audio. I'm a bit of an audio snob. I don't like listening to shitty noise. And there is a lot of big, well-known podcasts that are amateur hour. Like, they just get the audio of Zoom. I'm like, what are you guys doing?
Mate.
Honestly, not that difficult. Like you said, this microphone is $100, maybe 150 Aussie dollars. And I sit in my cupboard. And then I have some audio editors that go through and I guess tidy it up a little bit. But yeah, it's not that difficult and way better than the audio quality that you kick out from Zoom, because you're literally in someone's ear. And I don't want to listen to something that's all crackly and grainy and ugh.
Exactly. Yeah. Rah. So the second part of the question, what have you actually learned, I guess, from researching some of the topics or some of the guests that you've had? What's the biggest thing you've learned from the episodes that you've produced?
I guess I've learned a few things. I don't find anything too groundbreaking these days because I do a lot of reading and I do a lot of research, but I was talking to Dr. Ben Desborough way back in the archives about alcohol, and we went on a random tangent and he was telling me about the bomb calorimeter he has, which is basically the way that you test the amount of calories that are in a food. And he threw this massive knowledge bomb at me that the energy in a food can vary from what's on the nutrition information panel by as much as 20% either direction, based on the testing that they're doing down at Griffith University. And that is, to me, like, just mind-blowing. It's also not clearly published information. It's something you have to kind of know the people or really dive deep into research. But that was one of the huge light bulbs for me, like getting to talk to really high quality people and get that information from their brain, because research is about 3 years behind what they're actually doing, because it takes so long to plan a study, get it through ethics, run the study, write the paper, get it published into journals. So if you can get the word straight from the horse's mouth as quickly as it's happening, then you're ahead of the game. Yeah.
I guess follow on from that, what advice would you give to people then from that knowledge bomb that you got?
Don't count calories, which is an episode that we did a little while back. It's one of the reasons why I don't really think it's that useful, particularly for the triathlon population. One, it's really hard to estimate energy intake, like what's going in, but it's also really hard to estimate your outgoings, your energy expenditure. And so that knowledge bomb around food, what's on a label is not necessarily what's in food, I think really should shift people's perspective around calorie counting, because it is a bit of a guessing game. Like, yeah, you can kind of get it close-ish, but it could be out by 20% either direction. And is that worth your time and stress and overwhelm? In my opinion, definitely not. I'd rather teach you how to eat without counting calories, which is not that difficult. You just need a little bit of knowledge.
I imagine the anxiety around counting calories can get quite high, particularly with athletes.
Yeah, it's like basically like putting petrol on a fire. Like, I know that triathletes, being one, you know, you kind of retired, you can call yourself one as well. We're different type of people, right?
little bit.
Little bit high achieving, little bit type A, like to know all the numbers, do everything perfectly, don't want to get anything wrong. And so it's kind of putting petrol on that fire in a way, but calorie counting is not an exact science. And so why bother?
Just making a quick note of that one as we talk. And now, obviously, the things that you've learned are probably highlights, but is there anything else that sticks out to you over 100? That's right, 100 episodes.
I think the other thing that's really cool for me is giving age groupers a platform. Like I get to highlight some of the athletes that I get to work with, more to come always. And age groupers are doing some pretty epic shit. Like we had Denise Wilson on the podcast a little while back, and she did Ultraman Australia, and she's preparing to do Ultraman Australia again. Like you don't have to go that long, but you know, that's some pretty crazy shit. Also, we had Jason Curry on, who took almost an hour off his 70.3 time, simply going from not having any idea about nutrition, not having any form of plan, to then having a race nutrition plan for 70.3 and everything that goes with that as part of the academy. Now, you wouldn't hear about that, or nobody would know about that unless I could give them a platform to share that story. So that's been really cool for me, because all we see is pros on social media, in the media, and I don't know, age groupers I think deserve a bit of a platform too, because they fit all of that training in for 3 sports, plus working full-time, plus family commitments, all the things that go with being an age grouper.
And obviously highlighting those athletes, it's far more relatable to the people who are listening to this podcast. And pros obviously can tell a story and we can learn a lot from them. But generally they're at a point where they're tweaking the 1%ers. You know, Jason, who's taken an hour off his time, you know, at a guess, that's a 20% performance improvement, you know. That's crazy.
Huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what age groupers forget, is that they look at the pros for inspiration and ideas, and they want to do what they're doing because they don't want to miss out. But they are tweaking those 1%ers. So the supplements and the tech and stuff that they're using is to really dial in that top end. Whereas an age group triathlete, they need to work on those foundations first. And that's something that I'm really passionate about teaching them in the Triathlon Nutrition Academy program, is building that foundation layer from the bottom up. Because most pros, not all of them, some of them are still really shit at nutrition. Most pros have got those fundamentals right, and they've been working on that for a long time. So I think that's a really important message to hear, is that you can't compare yourself to somebody that is a full-time athlete, because that, again, they don't juggle all the things that you potentially do with work and family on top of training.
Yeah. I think that's one of the biggest things I used to talk to age groupers about a lot, is the biggest difference between going from age grouper to full-time professional is it's not that they necessarily get to train more. They don't do extra training. They get to recover more. They get to spend more time working on recovery, however that looks, nutrition, rest, active recovery, what have you. And people forget about that.
Yeah.
I want to know, what's the thing that's got you the most riled up over the last 100 episodes?
As in my podcast, or going on other people's podcasts? Because that's been the most blood boiling thing.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I went on a podcast with Motive, Triathlon Taryn. We had 2 Tarans on one podcast. That was interesting in its own. But he just talked about and wanted to know the details about all the myths and the rubbish that's online. And I was pretty sweaty after that one. And the other one, which actually hasn't seen the light of day, and it probably never will. I was interviewed by a nutritionist, and she was really pro taking all these powders after exercise because you just can't get there with food, and like completely against my whole ethos around nutrition. I'm getting like sweaty already talking about it.
Love it.
But she was just like, what do you mean? Like, athletes don't need this powder after exercise. I'm like, what are you talking about, you weirdo? No, I didn't say that, but it won't see the light of day because our views were so incongruent to my whole ethos around food first. And you honestly can get everything that you need from food without taking some greens powder that's got 100 different things in it, which honestly probably doesn't have any nutritional content left in it because it's been processed so much. Anyway, calm me down. Why'd you ask me that question, Stef?
Because this is one of my favorite Tarans.
Oh, the rolled up ranty Taryn. Look out. Hey, it's a celebration. Let's not make my blood boil because I could go on for a long time.
You could. But it's nice to see the passion is still there after 100 episodes.
Sorry. Meanwhile.
So bring it back to the actual podcast. What are your plans for it? Because I know you do a lot of solo podcasting. Where do you want to take it next? And have you got any teasers for us?
Oh, we've actually got a really awesome episode coming up shortly. We're about to open doors to the Academy program in just a short week. And honestly, one of my favorite episodes that I've recorded so far is 2 Academy athletes talking about how much money they're saving by joining the Academy. Like, it blew my mind. I didn't know the number before we hit record, and I was just like gobsmacked during that episode. So that's coming up. Looking forward to that one. I am going to do a good mix of solo episodes and guest sort of spots. I've really loved talking to people. I'm a total extrovert. And I love how podcasting not opens doors, but I guess gives you the opportunity to talk to people that you just wouldn't talk to in everyday kind of life. And that's been really cool. Like talking to Liz Blatchford about her career. Thank you for the connection.
You're so very welcome. One of my favorite people.
Yeah, she's awesome. And I'd love to get her back on. I think I'll continue doing a good mix of solo and other people. I don't know what you call it. Guests.
Guests is a good word. Yep.
And I've actually put a poll up on Spotify to kind of get that information from the listeners too. Like, what do they prefer? Do they prefer me listening to my Aussie accent, or do they prefer the guests? And, it turns out it's a mix, which is what I thought the answer would be. I actually like doing the guest episodes much more than solo. Solo is actually really quite difficult.
Very hard.
Yeah. And I definitely started with the strategy of doing more solo type things, but I'm going to try and, mix it up a little bit more. And we talked about episode 52 that I wanted to get some athletes on the podcast. I hadn't kind of got around to that. That was a year of podcasting, 52 episodes, and I still hadn't had an athlete on. But again, thanks to you, we've now spoken to Emma Jeffcoat. Woo, Emma!
Love Emma as well. Yep.
Legend. And Lizzie Blatchford. So getting some more athletes on, I think that's really good perspective. I'm mindful though that there's a lot of podcasts out there that talk to the pros, and I don't want to emulate that. I don't want to be a copycat. I want to stay in my own lane and do my own thing.
Who's the one guest that you really think your listeners would love to hear from and that you would just love to spend 30, 45 minutes with?
Blumenfeld.
Yeah,
that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
I don't want to give any more limelight to how he performs at that body composition because it's absolute bullshit, but I would love to talk to him and ask him questions that he's probably never been asked before, because I come at him from a different perspective. I could come at him from a nutrition performance perspective, and I would love to pick his brain.
Love it. Taz, 100 episodes, my friend.
It's crazy. I can't believe we're here, but ready for another 100, although it is exhausting. I'm not sure if you can tell, but I've been crazy sick heading into launch just because I'm trying to do all the things. I bite off more than I can chew, and I chew really bloody hard. Sometimes things just have to give, and at the moment, it is like my body telling me to slow down.
I understand this very, very well. Well, mate, hopefully I'm back again at 200 episodes and you've ticked off all those other goals that you've got with the podcast, which I'm sure you will. But for now, 100 episodes, I'm stoked for you. It's going really well, and I'm sure there's a lot more to tell.
Yeah, so much more to tell and so many more connections to make. The final thing we do need to do, Steph, though, is announce the competition winner for my 100th episode giveaway. Woo, woo, woo! So one lucky person gets a free 30-minute consultation with me, which is not something you can buy anymore. Like, it's not available to the public. I only work privately or one-on-one with Triathlon Nutrition Academy athletes only at this point. And the other thing the person gets is free access to my entire recipe database for 6 months, which is bursting with over 150 dietitian developed recipes to fuel the active body. So, drum roll, please. Yahoo! So congratulations. I'll be in touch and I'll get that organised for you. But thank you to everyone that entered. It's really nice to celebrate ticking off 100 episodes with all of you.
And congratulations again to you, mate. 100 episodes, really well deserved, and can't wait to hear the next one.
Yes, thank you so much for interviewing me on my own podcast, Stef. It's good to have you back after another, 48 episodes ago? So I look forward. I'm very terrible at maths. Listeners will know, Academy athletes will know, maths is not my strength. I have a very language colour brain. But write it in your diary now, episode 200. We're on, like Donkey Kong. Done. Thank you everyone for listening to 100 episodes, and look forward to 100 more to come. Thanks for joining me for this episode of the Triathlon Nutrition Academy podcast. I would love to hear from you. If you have any questions or want to share with me what you've learnt, email me at podcast@dietitianapproved.com. You could also spread the word by leaving me a review and taking a screenshot of you listening to the show. Don't forget to tag me on social media at dietitian.approved so I can give you a shout out too. If you want to learn more about what we do, head to dietitianapproved.com. And if you want to learn more about the Triathlon Nutrition Academy program, head to dietitianapproved.com/academy. Thanks for joining me, and I look forward to helping you smash it in the fourth leg. Nutrition!